What are some of the companies that you guys serve scared of? You know, where's their head at these days, right?
Well,
we're well after Sony.
Yeah.
You know.
I think one of the big changes that, what we call chief information security officers, one of the big things that they're thinking about now is historically this all used to be about protecting and defending the infrastructure, right? Think of this as, the moat and the castle wall.
Right.
Well, we've all kind of, unfortunately, have gotten accustomed to the fact that occasionally that castle wall gets breached, okay? So now, how do we respond to the incident once it's occurred? And in fact, one of the things coming out of this study that we released today is that companies that have an incident response plan in place have a dramatically reduced cost of the breach, down about $400,000 from those that don't, and down about $16 per record.
Because they're assuming that you can't break in, right?
Well,
like
no,
the
they know how to respond.
Yeah.
So think of it this way. And this is an anecdotal statement, but I would argue if you look at many of the breaches that have occurred in the last 18 months,
right,
the response the company had oftentimes caused more damage than the breach did itself.
Wow.
In everything from how did you deal with regulators, how did you deal with your customers, how did you communicate, how did you deal with journalists? Were you in front of the story or behind the story?
Sure.
Are there any hacks that you would say were just bad, like the response was terrible?
I'm not going to call out anybody in particular, but absolutely. And what you're now seeing is the movement towards scenarios where you kind of build a run book. In fact, IBM, we just recently went out and bought a company called Resilient Systems,
right,
no pun intended, to actually do just that, ensure resilience. And what we do in this case is we build that virtual binder on the shelf that says, okay, what do you do when you're breached? How do you respond? Did you know that in the 50 states, 47 states have completely different breach response legislation of what you need to do? And, let's face it, you want to be out in front of the regulators. If they expect you to respond in a certain way in a certain time frame, you want to be out in front of that, not behind it and give them an excuse to dig deeper.